This is Discovery, where Arthur C. Clarke now examines the truth behind the legends of monsters of the deep.
What was the sea monster that attacked and mauled this American warship? Did a giant octopus as big as Piccadilly Circus come ashore on this beach? Did the legendary Serpent of the Sea appear to this Cornish fisherman?
Out come the head about 3 feet away from the body. Had a good look at us. Presuming it didn't like to look away, and he just disappeared, submerged.
Mysteries from the files of Arthur C. Clarke, author of 2001 and inventor of the communications satellite. Now in retreat in Sri Lanka, after a lifetime of science, space, and writing, he ponders the riddles of this and other worlds.
I'm standing in front of my bungalow on the extreme southern tip of Sri Lanka. Just over 100 years ago, according to the London Times, which is not prone to sensational reporting, a schooner, the Pearl, of 150 tons, sailed from Galle Harbor, which is the next bay to here. That schooner sailed past here into the Bay of Bengal, and there she was attacked and sunk by a giant squid. This was observed from a P&O liner, which rescued some of the survivors from the schooner. It's an incredible story, but when one considers the enormous amount of unexplored ocean, there are 6,000 miles of empty sea from here to the icy walls of Antarctica. One can believe that out there lurked unknown and perhaps gigantic monsters still unknown to science.
The late Lieutenant R.E. Grimani Cox was returning home to England in 1942 when he encountered one of the Second World War's most nightmarish sea stories. His troopship was sunk by a German raider in the South Atlantic. Cox found himself on a fragile raft beset by sharks. After 5 days came a sinister assault. Cox showed the evidence later to a friend.
Well, when I looked at his leg, he pulled up his trousers and I could see scars the size of a penny, which is about 1.25 inches of the old penny, were dotted at intervals all the way up his leg. And these were white scars, sunk quite deep into the flesh, where the skin had been pulled off.
Before he died in 1971, Cox told the story to his sisters, as well as to his friend, a biologist, Professor Cloudsley Thompson.
Yes, he didn't show me that. He only showed me the...
You did that?
He was you, his sisters, and this was in the mess. There were 12 of them on the raft initially, and only 3 survived to the end of the 5 days. And one of the most horrifying things that happened while they were lying there, dying one by one from thirst, was one evening when they were attacked by a giant squid. An enormous shape appeared beside the raft, and a huge arm came over and snatched one of the men and tore him off the raft before anybody could do anything to save him. And presumably he was eaten. And they were still barely recovering from the shock of this when another arm or tentacle came over the side of the raft. He saw it silhouetted against the starlit sky, and it fastened itself on him, round his leg and round his body, particularly his right leg, because that's where the scars mainly were, he showed me, but I believe he said they were on the rest of his body as well. And he'd have been pulled off just like the others, only fortunately, by that time people were alert, and so they grabbed on and held him. And instead of him being pulled over the side, the suckers pulled lumps of skin off him, off his body. And this is what caused these a massive number of scars all over him.
On her maiden voyage out of San Diego, the U.S. Navy frigate Stein also had a weird encounter. The Stein's anti-submarine sonar gear suddenly went US, unserviceable. She sailed home. Once the family reunions were over and the ship was in dry dock, Petty Officer Ira Carpenter went down to examine the underwater dome.
We noticed that there were some quite long scratches starting from the front and the side and down underneath the dome itself. The longest one, I would say, was about 4 feet long. At the bottom of each one of these cuts, or at least 90% of the cuts, was something embedded underneath the rubber coating itself. Of course, I was interested to determine what that was. I had never seen anything like this before. This type of damage was brand new to me. So I used my knife to pick out this foreign object underneath the no-foul coating. And it looked to me like it was a claw. And I quipped to my SW officer at the time. I said, look here, it looks like we have been attacked by a bunch of small alligators.
Navy biologist F.G. Wood.
This is a small piece of the no-foul covering that was taken from the sonar dome of this ship. In many of these cuts were found teeth or claws, such as this one. And it's apparent that whatever did this damage grasped the dome and ripped all the way through this rubber covering to the metal below.
The claw it looked like it had been wrenched out of whatever had put it there.
I think that it must be from a squid, because squids do have claws or hooks similar to this. Nothing else that is known in the ocean has structures of this kind. This doesn't rule out something that we haven't found yet, because undoubtedly there are creatures in the sea that are not yet known to science.
The Stein has since remained unscathed. But although no full-grown giant squid has ever been caught, a hint of what such creatures may be like seems to surface oddly about every 30 years in the far north, in the cold waters of the Labrador Current. This is St. John's, Newfoundland, the wartime convoy base on Canada's Atlantic coast, and headquarters for Dr. Frederick Aldrich and his team.
This is a giant squid of the species Architeuthis dux. It came ashore on November the 22nd, 1979 at St. Brendan's on Collier's Island in Bonavista Bay, Newfoundland. It's an immature female. It is a small female, but it is a giant squid. During World War II, as ships would leave the harbor, they would be torpedoed by submarines, and when the survivors would go over the sides and hit the life rafts, giant squid would surface, pull them off of the rafts, and take them to their deaths under the surface. I cannot help but speculate that what we know about squid and its attraction to red, I just wonder if the red life jacket of the traditional Mae West life jacket might not have been a contributing factor in the death of those seamen. These are typical suckers on an arm of the giant squid. And you'll see that in addition to the suction cup, each sucker is fitted with a ring of teeth, so that when this sucker is applied to either prey or predator, these teeth are set and anchored into the flesh at the same time that the suction cup makes contact with the flesh of the other animal. The entrance to the mouth is guarded by these large beaks, much like the beaks of a parrot, and they tear pieces off of the prey or the predator, as the case may be. The tongues and the lips of sperm whales bear sucker scars, which are approximately 12 inches in diameter. I believe the giant squid reach an approximate maximum size of something like 150 feet. If this is 20 feet long, Well, then it's almost 8 times longer than this in overall length. And that's a big squid.
Now that we know that the giant squid is attracted to red, I'm making sure that my equipment is an appropriate color, yellow.